Hi everyone, how are you doing today? Well, I know I always start my videos out that way, but I really do care about how you guys are doing. And I got this comment from Nikki a couple days ago, and she said, "Do you have trouble concentrating on reading, given everything that's going on in the world?" And I could really relate to that. For a lot of us readers, if we're like lifelong kind of readers, I think escapism is a big part of it. I know when I was growing up, I was reading constantly in my spare time, and it was a way for me to escape from whatever I was going through at the time. And in the last 10 to 15 years, but especially during this pandemic, I felt a great difficulty in concentrating on reading anymore, let alone finding any escapism in it. I just feel very overwhelmed by stuff that's happening in the news, stuff that's happened in my personal life. I lost a loved one very suddenly last year, which was the first in a series of sad personal events. So I'm just feeling pretty at sea right now and unable to focus on reading of any kind for great lengths of time or even just short lengths of time. So I have a few ideas about how you can get back into reading or maintain your reading life. And I thought I'd just share them with you in this video. So the first thing, and I'm just going to write these down as we go. First thing that I would recommend, and this is kind of, this may be just sort of obvious, but read a chicken soup book. And what I mean by that is, we all have our favorite books, but maybe there's a book in your life that you absolutely fell in love with. It feels like it gives you the warm and fuzzies. It feels like a hug. And, just go back and read that book again or read something else by that author. For a lot of people, this might be P.G. Wodehouse. It might be a book from your childhood, like the Little House series, or even Winnie the Pooh, whether it's childish or just funny. Read that book again. So last night I picked up The Man Who Was Thursday by G.K. Chesterton. And I've read this 2 or 3 times in the past, but as I was reading the first chapter again, it just put the biggest smile on my face. The antics of these characters and how they are talking to each other just was absolutely delightful. And I don't know, this is my chicken soup book, and I can't wait to reread the rest of it. And it's also one of those that has so many layers. I feel like I can get something out of it each time. So, yeah, I would say this is a great time to reread books that really captivated you the first time. Another thing that I would recommend trying, so if you're really struggling with, these longer books, Crime and Punishment case in point, try reading shorter works. So, novellas. If that's still too long, maybe try some plays, which are meant to be read or rather watched in one sitting. Same with short stories. Some people don't like short stories, so I would say try different authors and see if you can find one that you do like, because it really varies from author to author. Some short story authors I enjoy would be Arthur Conan Doyle. He wrote Sherlock Holmes, but he also wrote a lot of other short stories as well. Flannery O'Connor from the 20th century has some very riveting short stories. Maybe you want to read some Lovecraft or something spooky like that. Algernon Blackwood, I read some of his stories last year and found them suitably creepy. And then there's sort of day in the life short stories. I'm trying to think of some off the top of my head, but I have to admit I can't. Still, if you just Google short stories or classic short stories, I'm sure you'll find tons of ideas. Another good one, which I think falls between these two, is called The Machine Stops by E.M. Forster. That's a short work of science fiction and really, really good, very relevant to today. And then I like poems. Not everyone likes poems, but maybe give some poetry a try. Again, something that you can finish in one sitting and feel like you've read something and you're not, you're like acknowledging your short attention span and just working with that, I think is really, really useful. So let's say you just can't find any fiction that strikes your interest. You might want to actually just try some nonfiction. And specifically, I think if you're going through some tough times, you might look for psychology, philosophy, or religious works. So this is going to depend on your personal belief system. It's going to depend on what kind of ideas are interesting to you. But one book that I always recommend to people, kind of regardless of where they're coming from, is Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor E. Frankl. This is a very, very classic work of psychology and also a Holocaust memoir. And I've read it 2 times, and I read it during the pandemic for the second time. And really, as you can see, I really love this book. I think it helps you kind of refocus yourself when you're feeling like nothing matters or everything's bad. Frankl lived through some of the most horrific events anyone can ever live through. So he's somebody who's speaking from his experience and talks about how he's also recovered from all of that and found reasons to keep going. So I really recommend this book, and he's written other things as well. If you are willing or interested in reading scripture, then I would recommend the book of Ecclesiastes, because it is somewhat, I consider it a work of existentialism in a way. This is where that famous passage comes from. To everything there is a season, a time for every purpose under heaven. And I think that became also a song, like a popular song. But yeah, I just really think Ecclesiastes is a great book to read if you're not feeling great, but you really need some encouragement. I like this verse from chapter 6. This is verse 9. Better is the sight of the eyes than the wandering of desire. This also is vanity and grasping for the wind. So that is sort of a recurring theme in scripture. You need to sort of focus on what you have right now and not worry about what you don't have or what the future holds for you or doesn't hold for you. So I don't know. I just really like Ecclesiastes. Other people may want to read Job, or, from the New Testament, I find great comfort in the Gospel of John. So again, this is a good time to sort of dig into your personal beliefs and just ground yourself in these kinds of writings. The other thing you can do, and sort of related to that, is read to solve a problem or understand a problem. And what do I mean by that? So let's say you're worried about something that's going on. Maybe you should actually spend some time reading more about it. And, documentaries are great, movies are fine, but the nice thing about books is it gives you the mental and emotional headspace to think as you learn and to go at your own pace and stop and reflect on what you're learning. Also, a well-written book has a good bibliography in the back, so you can check the sources, you can find more information to read about. So a couple of books I have here, and I've only started both of these because I still feel like they're a bit heavy for me right now. So I picked up Forward: Notes on the Future of Our Democracy, which is some reflections and ideas on how we can improve our democratic system. This is by Andrew Yang, who is a semi-political figure I've been following for a while now. Another book sort of on topics I'm interested in is The Trans-Pacific Experiment: How China and California Collaborate and Compete for Our Future by Matt Sheehan. And this is kind of a nice angle because I don't think he's trying to be super political in this one. It's more just talking about his observations and, things that he's seeing in that space. So again, these might still be a bit too heavy for you, but you might try at least to get a better grasp on your concerns by reading books about it. So continuing in this realm of nonfiction, you could read to learn something new. And it doesn't have to be anything political or related to what we just talked about. It could just be maybe a new language or a new field of interest. I have this book called French for Reading, which I got from my dad. And it's a really very cool system that teaches you French, or like reading French, starting with very simple things, and then it gradually builds up to longer passages. And people use this, I think, for their language exams in college. But, that's the sort of thing that it might be fun to do this every day. And you can also expand your areas of reading. If you can start reading simple things in French or another language, that would be something fun. Another way to keep reading, but not in the way that you've read before, perhaps. And then, what really helped me in this lockdown is reading together with other people. Especially face to face. I know there's lots of online read-alongs you can do. Those are awesome. I personally am terrible at sticking to them unless I actually see the person face to face, whether that's in person or on video. I don't know. I need that extra level of accountability to stay with the program. So you might try talking to a friend or family member, and it doesn't have to be a book you're super excited about, but just having that process is going to help you stay in your reading life. If you don't have anybody in your life to read with, you might try meetup.com, not a sponsor, but Meetup, a lot of their meetups are still online. So I would recommend checking them out and seeing if there is one in your area or even one in a different state or country that is, doing book clubs. And you can join them on Zoom or whatever and have those weekly discussions with real people. I think Facebook groups might be another option. I don't have any experience in that personally, but these kinds of forums for face-to-face or video-to-video interactions are good places to look. And I've personally had some good experience on Meetup. So, definitely look into that if that's something that interests you. All right, so my last tip here is kind of a tough one, but maybe you just need to stop reading. Maybe your body or your mind is telling you, I just need to take a break. I need to grieve whatever I'm going through. Reading's just not for me right now, and that's okay. You can also think of it as a bit of reverse psychology. If you forbid yourself to read, maybe you'll actually feel motivated to read. So, that could be one outcome. For me, I've noticed when I write more, I like to read more. And when I'm reading, I like to write. It's weird, but that's been my experience throughout life. So I've started writing poetry again. I keep a poetry journal, which means I try to write a poem every day or so. Especially for Lent, I've been trying to do one every day. And it doesn't have to be anything great, but it's a way of self-expression and a way to unwind, which is, a healthy outlet. Maybe you want to start journaling. Maybe you have material for a memoir, or you want to write down your feelings about what's going on in the world. That would be a great thing to do every day. Even if you're just writing little scenes or snippets of life, that is something that can help you process your feelings and process world events or personal events. You can do this on the computer, of course, or on your phone, but I actually am a big proponent of getting physical journals. This little one is something that my parents gave me when I was going through some difficult times in college, and I don't know, just having something tangible like that is really, really useful. And I don't know, $1.50, you really can't go wrong with something like that. So, and then lastly, maybe you want to pick up a new hobby. I started playing ukulele last fall and I absolutely love it. Maybe something like origami would be cool too, because you're making something with your hands and it's very affordable, very easy to get into. And, for those more athletically inclined, you can take up a new sport or something. So, I don't know. I think there's a lot of value in just going with the flow a little bit. And, with reading, if it's something you've done your entire life, it is possible you may never be able to get back to that space where it was a good source of escapism. But in that case, maybe you want to turn it into something else. Like maybe you want to keep reading for other reasons, like some of these we've talked about. Or again, it might just come back to you all of a sudden after you take a break. So that's sort of my advice for reading in hard times. I hope everyone is doing okay. And, I'm going to be a lot slower at these reviews this year too. So you're not alone. It's something a lot of people are going through, and we'll get through this. And it's just part of life. So I hope you have a great rest of the week, and I will see you soon.